Welcome to another episode of Distorted Opinions, where we talk everything music. I'm once again joined by Matt and Ted, and today we thought it would be a good time to talk about some of our favorite concerts. I know we've all been to a lot of concerts. When I actually sat down to start prepping for this show, I realized I'd been to more concerts than I actually thought, but I'm not sure that any of us have been to as many concerts as Ted has. I know Ted has been to a boatload of concerts, so I thought maybe, Ted, we'd start with you. I know you're probably going to have to narrow it down a bit based off that
Uh,
book you showed us.
I know. I mean, honestly, just prepping for this and going through all of my ticket stubs, it's kind of baffling how many bands I've been able to see over the years. And I feel like uh, the main era of concerts that I was going to were mid to late 2000s, into, I don't know, the early teens, if you will. Kind of slowed down in the past couple of years. But yeah, it was a lot to sort through and try to figure out what the best concert that I've been to. And to be honest, I was only able to narrow it down to four, which, I mean, given how many shows I've been to, it is what it is. So
Right.
It's probably because we're all old now, so the freedom of trying to go to a lot more concerts is a lot more slower.
yeah, right. Well,
They've gotten expensive too, to be honest. I think the price has gone way up.
absolutely. I know the nice thing, and even, looking back on all this, is I recall, friends going to, the more mainstream music concerts and things for current artists, and metal shows are always nice and cheap. So, $40 will get you, all day festival pass type of thing. And so definitely more affordable, which is nice.
Sure.
But to jump into my list, I think in no particular order, just in the order I have my notes written, I went to see Rob Zombie and Ozzy Osbourne for Ozzy's Black Rain tour in January of 2008.
Nice.
At the DCU Center in Worcester, and that show blew my mind. It was my fourth time seeing Ozzy in 2008 already, because all the prior Ozfests and things like that. But seeing Rob Zombie perform live, he is such a showman. So combining Ozzy, already legendary, with Rob Zombie with his masterful stage show and presence and moving contraptions, and it's the next era Alice Cooper, if you will. That show just blew my mind. So captivating. The crowd was really into it. It was just a really good experience. So I remember during the show thinking to myself, this is the best show I've ever been to. And obviously there's plenty of others, because I couldn't narrow it down, because there are plenty of other concerts here. But so there's that one. Another one I did was System of a Down in 2005, also at the DCU Center. That was my first time seeing System of a Down. They had the Mars Volta open for them, which I remember Mars Volta was awful. It was just like cacophony of sound, and it was a jam from the time they hit the stage to the very end, and that was just awful. And I think the crowd got tired of it too. But when System of a Down hit the stage, 2005, we're talking, Chop Suey and like all of those fond era of hits were being played, and the crowd was so into it. My seats, I remember, were off second level on the left-hand side of the stage, so kind of looking down onto the stage from the very side. So it wasn't the best seating arrangement, but the crowd was so into it. So you can just vibe with how people are reacting to the music, and it was just really, really good.
Sure.
So that one definitely a major hit. Another two left on my list here, Marilyn Manson, Slayer, and Bleeding Through show I went to in 2007. This was, I believe, also at the DCU Center. A lot of shows there. But at that show, I was able to be on the barricade, front on the floor. And during the show, Manson got off the stage and walked between the stage and the barricade. And then he wound up standing on a step, like the security step or whatever, on the other side, and then leaned over the crowd. People went wild. And then he started coming over to our section of the floor, and he stood up. There was a step right in front of me, and he stood on the step, leaned over, and made direct eye contact with me. And he's got like the pink, makeup line, whatever. It was wild. And being on the barricade, everyone behind me, all sweaty and dancing or whatever, just went like this to try to touch him. And so everyone's just trying to like get a hold of shirt, and he was right there. Yeah, I got a shirt. He was right here. Like, that is such a crazy experience.
Nice.
And then also being on the floor right in front of Slayer and having Kerry King just right there on stage. Phenomenal experience. So I still got my floor wristband from that concert. I got confetti from that was fired off during Manson's finale. Like, that was awesome. It was a great show. And then the last one I have is one that Matt, you and I went to together with a couple of our other friends. It was the Guns N' Roses show at Gillette Stadium.
Nice.
And Lenny Kravitz opened for GNR. And Guns N' Roses really hasn't toured ever since the early 90s, I feel like.
Volbeat was also a part of that.
Oh, that's right.
I think it was Volbeat opened up, then Lenny, and then Guns N' Roses, I think.
Right.
That was an awesome show.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's Gillette Stadium. We weren't very close, but the screens were absolutely massive, so it felt like you were right there.
Sure.
So the experience was really cool. And, all those songs that they played for over 3 hours, like, just hits you right in the feels. Like, it's all the nostalgic music grew up listening to. So just that experience alone, and then hanging out with you guys at the same time, like, that was just an excellent show. So definitely, I couldn't pick one. And believe me, there's, I still got this book, plethora, as I spill things out here, but just a plethora of other tickets and things going on here that I couldn't decide. So
this is no amateur hour, ladies and gentlemen. This gentleman knows his concerts.
So, yeah, there's plenty of others, but it was a fantastic time.
Nice.
To jump in on that show, that was also the same year that Guns N' Roses officially reunited with the original members.
Oh, right. I think it was all but one of their members.
Yeah, I think it was the original. I think it was one of the guitars.
Because obviously Slash was it Rex on bass? I believe so. Obviously, drawing a blank, Axl Rose, and I'm not sure if the drummer was original or not, but it was basically as original of a lineup as you can get for that group. So totally worth going.
Nice.
It was an awesome show.
Yeah. Matt, what did you have up? Because I know it kind of segued over into a show we've shared together.
Sure. So, kind of the same thing, same thing with you, Ted. There's so many shows that I could have, picked out. And, hard to say. There was really only one that really stood out. And I want to say that it was the very, very first rock concert that I've ever been to. So October 30th, 2001, freshman year, just to tell you how old we are, freshman year of high school, Pledge of Allegiance tour. It was headlined by System of a Down, Slipknot, American Head Charge, Mudvayne, Rammstein, and No One. So it was
a great lineup. I'm just like drooling over all those names.
It was. It's funny. Like so of course we all have a buddy of ours. We're hoping to have on the show. That he and his brother said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna go," and I just bought us tickets to the Pledge of Allegiance tour. And I remember going, "Wow, this is like the first ever concert." We're sitting in I think it was like either math or history or something like that. And we actually left early to go to the show. because it was at the DCU Center. Back then, it was known as the Worcester Centrum. And I remember saying that, wow, this is going to be a really, really exciting show. That was also the year that Toxicity came out from System of a Down. Slipknot just came out with their second album, Iowa. And American Head Charge, I wasn't really familiar with American Head Charge, but their album, from when I was doing some research, that was the album that they came out with, The War of Art.
Art of War.
Oh, the Art of War, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Mudvayne, No One, and Rammstein, I really wasn't too known. I didn't really know them as much, but we went there, right? So I'm remembering standing outside, and of course, I'm like in just regular like school attire, baggy pants, baggy shirts, and whatnot. Have the chain going on, and I remember standing in line and waiting to get inside. And there's all these metalheads, like hard rock guys, and I'm thinking, going, "Oh man!" I was like, "I'm totally standing out, like a Splinter or whatnot, if that's even the acknowledgy." So remember going in, and I think because of the time frame when we went from outside to actually going to our seats, and that's actually after getting our drinks and our snacks, though we missed American Head Charge. So we're sitting at our seats, lights go down, and System pops up, and instantly it was just a room full of energy. You hear the fans going off, you hear the guitars just blaring into your face, the drums, the bass, the vocal Surge's vocals coming right at you. And at that time, Chop Suey came up, Toxicity came out. And near the end of the set, I noticed that the drummer wasn't there, and all of a sudden, Joey Jordison jumped onto the drums to play Sweet Pea with System of a Down, and the crowd went absolutely friggin' wild. And it was at that time, it was like a great collaboration. I didn't even again, this is like my first rock concert, so I'm going, wow, bands can play together? Holy crap. So again, really getting really excited. And I remember at that time getting so excited that I actually ended up getting a little nauseous. So when where we were sitting at, we were in the balconies. And I'll be one to admit that, hey, balconies, I get nauseous. Not fear, but it's like nauseous. So I had no choice but to kind of like stand near the bottom of the row and just look it over. But I remember at that time, our buddy came over and he stood next to me, and we're like watching the show. System ended, and then all of a sudden 515 started playing from Slipknot. And of course, this is like when it's all pitch black, the curtains haven't come down, and the crowd just pumping. So next thing you know, it's like a thunderous roar, like it's almost like everyone just was in unison, stomping their feet. 515 is playing, stops, and then the curtains drop and they start playing People Equal. Because of podcast reasonings, there's a little bit of vulgar. So People Equal. And at that time, I got so nervous and so excited at the same time, because all of a sudden, all the fans rushed to the floor. I've seen people jumping over seats, people jumping over guards, pushing guards away. And you had Corey Taylor being like, "Get all your mother ass over here." And it was like a sea of fans going. And that show was just it was like right in your face, an amazing show. At that time, I thought like, oh crap, I'm gonna get like killed at the show. And at one point, our buddy and I were watching the show, and he turns around and goes, "Ow!" I'm like, dude, what happened? Someone threw a beer from the very top and it hit him, and it drenched him all over. Now remember, okay, we're freshman year of high school, okay? So he's covered in beer, I'm covered in beer, and we're just like, we don't care. Slipknot is on, and we're just gonna have a great time, just listen to these guys. And it was crazy. And the one song I was really looking forward to was a live version of Left Behind. And you want to talk about a tornado, a hurricane, a tsunami, and a lightning storm all at one time. Okay, with a flood of fans. It was like all these storms all in one, and just that's the only thing that was just so memorable about it, because it was a show that was thunderous. The Pledge of Allegiance tour ended up. I wasn't really a big fan at that time of really buying merchandise, but that was the very first Pledge of Allegiance tour T-shirt. I have to get it.
You wore that shirt all the time, through high school. You wore that shirt all the time.
I washed it, but
I know you washed it, but I just remember you wearing that shirt all the time.
It was phenomenal, and even the logo was so awesome. This is what the logo looked like, and it was phenomenal. It was a great, awesome show. Had an awesome logo to it, and just ended up had to go buy that shirt. So that's what really stood out. That was the one concert I wanted to talk about today. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I know we've all been to some concerts together. I don't know if we've ever the three of us been to a concert together at the same time, but
I think for this podcast, we'll eventually have to one day.
I know.
Yeah, I guess so.
I've been to shows with Matt. I've been to shows with you, Kayla.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to make that happen. Hopefully concerts will be a thing that can happen again in the not too distant future. We'll see.
Yeah.
We could be talking
2021.
Right. We could be talking historical content here, last people to ever have gotten to go see an actual concert before they no longer did concerts.
On that note, can I just chime in?
Yeah.
Slayer bowed out did their farewell tour at the perfect time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they do.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. Although there's a lot of interesting online concerts happening right now, but it's really not the same thing. And Ted, I know you covered kind of in your description of one of your concerts that I think it was Ted, maybe it was you, Matt. The band started playing, and you could just feel the energy of everybody in the stadium, the arena, wherever it was. And that is a big part of the concert experience, is just feeling the energy with all the other people who are there because they love those same bands that you're there to see. And for me, that's part of what I really enjoy about a concert. It is a lot about seeing your favorite bands live, but it's also about being there with, 35,000 other people who all like the same band and the same music. So that's a big part of the experience for me. And, I'm trying to remember when the first concert was that I ever went to. I went to a lot of smaller shows that maybe get into another topic that we're going to have to discuss at some point, which is meet and greets. That's for another show because, Ted, I know, again, you've met a ton of bands. Matt, I'm sure you've met a ton of bands. I've met a ton of bands over the years, so we could probably cover... Yeah, I'm sure that could be
That's an episode in itself.
Right. So we'll have to do that at some point. But a couple of the concerts that stood out to me as I was trying to kind of narrow down to some of the more memorable shows were in 2004. And I don't know if it was 2004 or 2005, but WAAF used to do the indoor beach party. And they would hold it at the Songus Arena in Lowell. And there was one year, whichever one it was, that I was supposed to go to a meet and greet with Jerry Cantrell, and I want to say it was the Guitar Center in North Attleboro, and for whatever reason, Jerry never showed. But the AAF street team had been there handing out tickets to the indoor beach party, and because there was nobody at this meet and greet because Jerry didn't show up, I just kept going back and asking for more, and I think they gave me 13 tickets to the show, and I ended up bringing, I don't know if you guys were there with me. I know there were a bunch of other people we hung out with at the time who went. We all had to obviously get rides from, multiple people because we wouldn't all fit into one vehicle. I remember my brother went with me to that, and I think that might have been his first concert because he had to have been... I was either a sophomore or junior, and he was still in middle school at the time, so I'm kind of surprised my parents even let him go to that. But it was Killswitch Engage, Damage Plan, and Black Label Society, and I think that was actually only a few months before Dimebag Darrell had been shot and killed during a show.
Still bothersome to this day.
Yeah, I mean, little did any of us know at the time that that was probably going to be the last time that we would ever see Dimebag. And then now, of course, Vinnie Paul is also passed away. So, both of them are gone at this point. So that's kind of a historical show in my mind. And then the other show that I kind of had a fond memory of was Loco Bazooka 2006, which was Alice in Chains, Blackstone Cherry, Buck Cherry, Powerman 5000. Blind by Noon was there. I think there might have been a couple of other bands as well.
There was an all-day festival. There were so many groups there.
Yeah. Ted and his wife Michelle had gone to that as well. And one of the things I distinctly remember about that was Powerman 5000 playing, and Ted, I'm pretty sure you got a stick. And
I wrenched it out of your hand.
Did you
and
really?
I am not proud of that.
You know what I ended up with?
You had it, and then I did one of these because I was standing behind you.
Do you remember what I ended up with?
Oh, I forget.
I ended up with the sweaty towel from, was it Johnny Rock, who was their guitarist at the time? And I'm like, yay, a sweaty towel. Like, I'm not one of those people who's gonna keep a sweaty towel and not wash it. I'm sorry, it's been washed. It's been washed since, but I distinctly remember the drumstick. You ended up with the drumstick.
Oh,
I don't.
Keep on talking. I have it. It's right over here.
Okay, sounds good. I don't remember Ted wrestling the stick out of my hand, so he probably could have gotten away with not sharing that piece of information. I never would have remembered it. Is that the stick?
This is the stick. I put the date on it, August 13th, 2006. And the best part is that I bought the CD
Right.
and was able to meet the band. So
Right.
I made sure that the drummer signed the stick. So he signed it, and then just PM 5K, which I know the glare is terrible, but you can kind of read it.
Right.
This side is PM 5K.
Nice.
So, yep, it's a Vader stick. Still got it.
I
It's on
should
my
have
wall
had
of
you.
fame.
I should have had you get the sweaty towel signed by the whole band. At least it would have been a little more valuable than just being like,
Had we
"Here's
had
a
thought of
sweaty
it at
towel."
the time.
But then again, if it's sweaty, okay, it's probably gonna be smeared.
Well, you don't want to wash it. It's going to stink.
That's true.
Gross.
I guess another reason why that didn't happen.
Yeah. On that
Caleb.
note,
Caleb, was the where was so Loco at the time? And I really wish they brought it back. That was such a great series every year
Yeah.
that they brought. But at the time, Loco was like switching up of areas.
Venues.
So with venues. So was this around the year that they started playing? They started establishing the Fitchburg Airport.
no.
after
So yeah, this was in Mansfield at
Okay.
what is it now? It's I think the Xfinity
Xfinity Center.
I don't know
Yeah,
if it was
Comcast
at
Center
the
or something.
time. At the time, I think it was something else. But yeah, it was in
Tweeter Center.
Mansfield. Yeah,
Tweeter.
probably. But yeah, it wasn't one when they had done it at the Fitchburg Airport. It was in Mansfield, but it was still a good show. I don't think you could really get a bad seat there, to be totally honest. And we kind of bounced around throughout the day because they
There were
really
how many
didn't.
stages? Like that was the best part. They had basically 4 stages going
Right.
all day long,
Right.
and so you want to see this. Mushroom Head's going to play on this stage at 3:00.
Right.
Great, go watch on this stage, and you don't care about these other bands or pick and choose.
Right.
So it was
Absolutely.
a great setup.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't even think we saw half of the bands that were playing because you couldn't be in multiple places at the same time. So we kind of had to pick and choose where we wanted to be. And then they had the meet and greets going on at the same time. So, you had those. And, I know you and Michelle met Powerman 5000. I think you guys met Jay and Scott from Blind by Noon as well. I know I
Yes.
have a picture with the two of them.
You took the picture of us with them.
Yeah, most likely. And then, the band that I was ultimately there to see was Alice in Chains, and I think that was their first show or their first tour with William Duvall, who was their singer replacing Lane Staley. And I've always been disappointed that I never got to see Alice in Chains with Lane, because Lane was an amazing vocalist. But I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised with Williams' vocals. He's probably the closest thing you're gonna get, in my opinion, to Lane's vocaling style. But they put on a great show.
That year was that was the year that Black Gives Way to Blue album came out.
Right.
And that is a phenomenal album, especially for such a hiatus after Lane's passing. That when they came back out, I know there's a lot of there was a little bit of a controversy to say, hey, when's is Jerry Cantrell going to be doing the vocals for this? And when they got the new singer, that there was a little bit of backlash to say, well, how could you replace Lane? But when Black Gives Way to Blue came out, it was an incredible album.
Absolutely, one of my favorites, for sure. And I know we're getting close to running out of time here, and we still have to do our song of the week. So I'm gonna just blow through just listing a couple of the other shows. Matt, I know you had gone to this one with me, Summer Sanitarium in 2003 at Gillette Stadium. That was Metallica, Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Mudvayne. I think that was the first show Metallica did with Rob Trujillo after Jason had left the band. And again, another thing I was super bummed about, that I never got to see Metallica with Jason, because believe it or not, he was actually my favorite member of the band for many, many years. But that was a great show. And then more recently, I went to the World Wired tour, which was also at Gillette in 2017, and that was Metallica, Volbeat, Local H, and Mixmaster Mike from the Beastie Boys. And that was, I think, 3 days after Chris Cornell had passed away. And I remember Rob Trujillo, for his bass solo, did an amazing cover of Black Hole Sun as a tribute to Chris, which was great. But that was, and we talked earlier about tickets being cheap for metal shows and making it a little easier to go to those shows. And I remember when we went to the Summer Sanitarium tour, we were kind of in what probably would have been considered the nosebleeds at Gillette. We were kind of toward the back of the stadium, and I don't think we paid a ton of money for those tickets.
No.
And at the time, we were all in high school. I don't know about you guys, but I was probably working a part-time job and bringing in like $100 a week. So spending money on tickets was, that was a luxury.
Yes.
And so now that I have a little more money, I ponied up the cash to get better seats when I went to the World Wire tour, and we sat on the left side of the stage, like 7th row up. You could feel the pyro blasts whenever they'd go off. I mean, I thought it was going to singe my hair. It was so hot.
At least you got a good tan after that.
That's right. That's right. They were amazing seats. It was a great show. My coworker Amber went with me. We actually, I bought 2 tickets, not even knowing who I would take with me, because I knew one way or another I was going and somebody was going to go, whether I got a friend to go with me or at the time, my dad was still alive and hadn't been sick yet, and I know he would have gone with me as well, because he was also a big fan of Metallica. So, but my coworker ended up going.
I got that offer to go with you because you were trying to find a home for that other ticket, and for whatever reason, I couldn't go. As much as that show would be awesome. But no, I recall that scenario.
No worries, man. It was a good show. Hopefully they'll come back through and there will be another opportunity. And then the last show that I had on here was actually a local show at the Bull Run in Shirley in June of 2017. My dad and I went to see Eric Johnson, and he's probably most well known for Cliffs of Dover, which was, I think, probably one of his only songs that really got played on mainstream radio. And that
came out in like the early 90s. Isn't that like 1993, 4, somewhere in there?
Yeah, either late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah.
That's going back a while for sure. And we had seen him, I think the year prior, he did an acoustic show, which was awesome. But this one, he was going to be doing electric, and I was like, oh, we have to go. We got to get there early. For those who've never been to the Bull Run, they open doors at a certain time. If you want to eat food, they serve food. And the earlier you get there, the better seats you're going to get at your table. So your table's assigned, but your seat's not. So you want to get there early if you want a good seat. And we had bought a table right up in front. So my dad and I got there as soon as doors open, and I sat 6 feet away from Eric as he played Cliffs of Dover, and I lost my freaking mind. Like, it was amazing. I wasn't sure he was going to play it, and then he brought it out at the last second, and it was phenomenal. And if you're a tech geek, if you're into the tech, pedals and stuff, check out his pedal board, because my dad and I were looking at that thing on the stage before the show started, and he has got to have one of the most massive pedal boards I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how he keeps track of all of the pedals he has on there, but it's just phenomenal, the number of pedals he has. So with that being said, that's me narrowing it down to my four, like you, Ted, my four most memorable shows.
It's hard.
It is. It really is. I could talk about others too.
We may have to have another episode.
Yeah.
We might. It could have probably easily been a two-parter. I'm pretty sure meet and greets could easily be a two-parter when we get to that. So maybe we'll have to revisit this at some point and do a part 2 on favorite shows. But with that being said, why don't we go into our song of the week? And if you guys want, I can start with mine since I'm already kind of running it. So I picked probably a more obscure Alice in Chains tune, Whale and Wasp, which was an instrumental off of their album Jar of Flies, which came out in 1994. Again, probably not a song that I think they've ever played on mainstream radio, but it's pretty awesome, so I'd recommend checking it out. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to, why don't we go to Matt? What did you pick for this week?
So, because I was talking about the Pledge of Allegiance store, I'm going to have to go with Chop Suey from System of a Down's Toxicity. This was really the first song that ever got me into System of a Down, and not realizing at the time this was the second album versus their debut album. So when they were playing songs from the first album, like Sugar, I was just like blown away. And then at that time, I was like, oh wow, they played Sugar. Like, hey, Chris, do you know the song? He's like, yeah, Matt, this is from the first album. So I'm like, wait, there's a first album. So Chop Suey was really the song that got me into System of a Down. The music video is even hilarious too, and it's just a really, really energetic and uplifting type of tune.
Nice. Yeah, and similar to things that we've already talked about in terms of like shows we've been to, I've referenced Slayer a couple times. So the song that I'll throw out there, obviously classic, Raining Blood from the Rain in Blood album from Slayer, 1986. Absolute classic. I'm a big fan of Angel of Death as well, the opening track, but if you just want old school thrash that just, I don't know, it grooves. Like, I don't know, I love it. It's so heavy. But yeah, that got to be Rain and Blood.
Awesome. Awesome, guys. Good picks for this week. If you haven't listened to those tracks, definitely go give them a listen. And with that's all the time we have for this show. But as always, if you've got an idea for a future topic, or if you'd like to be considered as a guest, feel free to send us an email at distortedopinionsshow@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook for extras and updates on future shows. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening in.